It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyrone Lowe. I'm your host. The show is called The Legends, and I want to thank everybody all over the world that actually subscribes to my show and show me love. In the House of the Legends, he's an author, he's an entrepreneur, and he has some great, groundbreaking information for you guys. So, in the House of the Legends, I give you Donald Martin. Welcome to The Legends.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Tyrone. I really appreciate it.
Great. We're going to talk about the beginning for you, where you're from and things of that nature. And how was your childhood, man?
Actually, born in Harlem,
Okay.
raised in the Northeast Bronx.
Right.
The best upbringing I think that a child can ever have.
Okay.
Loved it. I have strong ties to the Bronx always, all my friends and
Right.
still that live there in the Bronx. That's where I'm from, but I also have Caribbean roots.
Okay.
I went to high school in St. Thomas,
Okay.
Virgin Islands. And
All right.
and my mom and dad are from the British Virgin Islands.
Okay. And like my bow-legged Lou says, Rikers Island. He always says that because his family's from the Virgin Islands as well.
hear you,
But he always says, I'm also from Rikers Island. So I'm like, just a joke.
I got you.
So, growing up and painting a picture, projecting of what you really wanted to characterize yourself as a person, what was it like?
Actually, growing up, I grew up in a very, very conservative home. My mom and dad,
Okay.
God-fearing people as well.
Right.
I mean, they also had a good time as well. Don't get me wrong, but they were God-fearing
Hey, you
people.
gotta have a good time.
Okay. And I grew up in the Bronx playing all kinds of games and sports. Quite frankly, I had no idea what I was going to do in life.
Right.
I had no clue.
Okay.
I'm being honest. I didn't actually have a clue. I was actually, I didn't go to college.
Okay.
I'm a high school graduate
Right.
in St. Thomas. Came back to New York
Right.
and got a job on 25th Street in a textile company.
Okay.
And if you go back and some old movies, you might see me roll one of those carts with the big bolts
Right,
down the
yeah.
street.
Okay.
And that was my beginning in the world of textiles.
And so from there, where did you find yourself? You wanted to actually get into that field?
No, I did not. I was a shipping clerk. No, the assistant to the assistant shipping clerk.
Okay.
Okay. And that's what I did. And that was kind of what I did, just looking for a job and making some money out of high school. And then actually I got fired. This is all chronicled in my book.
That's quite common.
I probably deserved to
People.
get fired. I probably did, being honest.
Right.
And I was out of work for a few months, and then I went to the employment agency back then. Okay, and the guy sitting there and telling me, "Oh, I got a job,
Right.
but it's temporary. It's uptown in Midtown in a textile company because I had a little textile background.
Right.
To work again in the shipping room." And that's really happened. And I said, well, no, I want a permanent job. I don't really want one temporary. And he said to me, this guy, I would love to meet this guy again. I don't know. I never will.
Right.
He says to me, well, this way, if you take the job, you'll have some money for Christmas.
Wow.
That's what
Okay.
he told me. So I said, okay, I'll take it. And that was the beginning of my career in textiles.
And so from there, where did it take you?
Well, from there, I worked there, again, the assistant to the assistant. And it was in a showroom. I was in the menswear capital of the world.
Okay.
Which was 1290 Avenue of Americas.
All right.
That was the menswear tailored clothing capital of the entire world. Anybody had an office in that building. And I started off in the stock room and delivering fabrics and samples all around to the various clients all over the building. At that time, you had Christian Dior, and you had Stanley Blacker, and you
Designer
had
stuff, yeah.
all those designer names and houses. They all had fancy offices throughout the building and so on. And every time I went to a particular office, they sent me to the back, and there's a door, and a black person opened the door to sign the samples.
Oh, okay.
There was no black people at all in the front.
Right.
And I noticed that and I was in the back as well at the
Okay.
time, and I did notice that. And, and I said to myself, this is really interesting. And I always liked clothes as a kid. And so I got into the working for them, and I was very ambitious. I worked hard. And for some reason, what happened was, in the middle of the selling season, one of the salesmen had quit and went to someplace else, and there was an opening to assist in the showroom a bit. And I got an opportunity to do that because I was learning fast and that kind of thing. And I got into the showroom, assisting with the swatches and putting up the boards and all that kind of stuff. And my career actually had a rapid ascension.
Okay.
From there, due to being lucky, okay, and also being, I guess I was an ambitious guy.
Right.
And even though back then there was no blacks in that, especially in textiles, there wasn't any. And I got into that, and from there, after a year or two, I got into sales.
Okay.
Because I was good. I was always a good talker, motivated.
Right.
I was an aggressive guy, and I got into sales, and within 3 or 4 years, I was one of the top sellers in the industry at the age of 25. And then I became a very wanted commodity. And a designer that I worked with, he was from England. He worked in a company that I had worked in. And we decided we just go out and have cocktails all the time and talked ourselves into forming a corporation and going into business. And at that time, I was a top seller. He was a top designer. And we got backing from a company in Canada that backed us financially. And we were able to buy our shares. Actually, on the day before, I had to come up with 30 grand to buy my shares. And the night before, I think I only had 25.
Okay.
And a very good friend of mine by the name of Billy Harvey from the Bronx, I called up on the phone. I said, Bill, I need $5 grand. And I got to have it by tomorrow. He said, no problem, Don. Came down to his house in the Bronx, gave me $5 grand. I deposited the money in the bank, and I was able to buy my shares in my first company.
Okay.
Which is Windsor Textile Corporation. And we were backed by a large textile company in Canada. Powerful people.
Right.
And I remember being in the meeting when we had the meeting when they had heard about us. We were looking for backing, and they were the lawyers and everything else. But anyway, they did make a decision to back us, and it was a very good decision on their part.
Okay.
We grew the company, took off like a rocket, and I was leading the way on the marketing sales end, and we were very, very successful, and that was my first company. And the company really, what we do is we represent mills all over the world.
Okay.
Whether it was China or India, back then more England, South America, Istanbul, all over Europe, and so on. So after a while, I started traveling the world and doing business everywhere, and also selling textiles to all the clothing manufacturers in the United States.
Wow.
And quite frankly, I would say every single designer in the United States has bought from me. And we sold to all the major stores, Nordstrom's, JCPenney, and all that. We sold in big volume, 100,000 yards at a time, 50,000 yards. That was a major type of business. And, and we ascended really, really fast, and we grew. And my book tells a lot about this, but there's also a whole lot of stuff in between.
Yes.
In Black Man, White Industry.
And tell the viewers, what's the name of the book?
Black Man, White Industry.
Very interesting title.
My journey through the men's fashion world.
Okay. So through this whole ordeal, you broke the racial barrier in a sense of the industry itself.
I was the first black person to actually form a textile corporation in textiles. And that's an area that a lot of white folk don't know about, much as black. It's an area that was shut off to us, and we didn't know anything about. I was always very aggressive, you know what I mean? And I was able to do that. And even though when it was happening, I was doing it, I never thought about it. I was just doing business.
Right.
I was about doing business. I wasn't really about the fanfare. I was making it happen. And that was always my motivation. And maybe back in those days, people say, oh, you should talk to this one. I said, nah, I'm not interested in that. I'm here to do business. That's what I'm going to do. And we did very, very well. The book will tell you so many twists about that.
Let's hear one.
I'll tell you, as we know in the South, there was always racism in the South. We all know that, historically. And quite frankly, my first boss, my second boss actually, my third boss, sorry about that. He actually, he hired me as a salesman, and he sent me down to that region. And I went down there as a black man, to West Georgia. And I was always the kind of person, I was very confident. So I never really cared. I don't care if it send me to the moon. I'm going out there to do some business.
Right, right.
And what happened was that whole region became a power base for me. I did more business with them, and my book tells about all this.
Right.
And against my white competition back in New York City. And it was really, really a phenomenon. I didn't look at it that way. And I just was very, very successful. Did millions of dollars for probably a period of 20 to 25 years. That's a good thing.
Right, right.
One thing that happened that really happened bad after I got into business with my partners, who were all white.
Right.
And there began to be a lot of, I would say, jealousies and so on, because I was the guy.
But they becoming kind of like radical to you in a sense?
I was the personality.
With their attitude?
I was the personality.
Okay.
And there were designers, and then the guys in Canada were my financial backers, and I was really the face, the personality, and the whole industry knew me as that. I was very charismatic and always been that way. So what happened was, my partners actually they didn't want me when they went into business with me. They didn't want me to be the face of it. That was not the plan. But I wasn't into plans.
Right. But how did you feel about that?
Well, when I found out about it, not too good. You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
And they thwarted me in many ways. My book tells so many things about those wars.
Right.
And my own partners, who I went into business with, the ones in New York, were against me.
Wow.
And they teamed up with a lot of the employees, some of the employees and stuff, and there was honestly like a war going on. And what I did was, when I was looking for a new salesman, I hired a black guy.
Okay.
He was working for one of my competitors, but he
Right.
was ascending a bit. He was working in the stockroom still, but he was getting smart.
Right.
He was working in the showroom a bit.
Getting the experience.
Yes, and I thought he was ready for a shot.
Right.
And I hired him. And the first time I interviewed him, I looked at him. He came to see me to my office. And he's there in my office. He's sitting down talking to me. His name is Kendall Knight.
Okay.
And I looked at him. I listened. And I didn't think he was ready yet. And then he went. Then, believe it or not, a couple years later, he comes back.
Right.
I looked at him. He's ready.
He's ready.
And I hired him. Very sharp young guy.
Okay.
And I gave him that shot. And man, he made me proud.
Okay.
And the whole marketplace was very, very appreciative of that. Here I was, a black man that broke a barrier.
Right, right.
And I'm bringing in another black man as well. And we were very, very looked at, admired. He had the talent, but I groomed him. I taught him I gave him an expense account. I taught him how to winding down customers at the finest eateries all over Manhattan.
The business aspect of it.
Yeah, because our industry was big in entertainment.
Right.
I mean, I'd have lunch at 21. I'd have cocktails at the Rainbow Room. I'd be at Jean George. I'd be at all the top steakhouse. I mean, this was part of the industry.
Right, right.
It was because we had clients coming in from all over the country, and our resources coming in from all over the world, and we entertained them to the highest level. That's just where it was.
Right, right.
And let's say if I went to Europe, if I'm in England or Paris or Spain, wherever I'm at, they tend to entertain me the same.
Right, right.
That's just where it was.
Yeah.
And this young man, Kendall, was fabulous, and it was a great time in my career to bring him on board. There's another story about him as well.
Oh,
when he got trained, and he ended up being a star, which I knew he was.
Right.
But the day I hired him, I said to him, look, one day you'll get an offer.
Right.
I says, when you do, I'd like you to come to me. I said, if you're good enough, I'll match it.
Okay.
I said, if you're not, if I didn't think so, I'll let you
did
go.
you?
I'll let you go. Exactly what I said to him.
Okay.
So now what happens is when that day came, and I knew it would come. He was becoming a star. I groomed him to be a star. And he became a star. And my old boss, who I left to go into business with,
Right.
he came after him. Okay?
Okay.
And made him an offer because another hotshot salesman had left and went someplace else. So they thought, he's the guy. He's been trained by Don Martin. And he's
He's sharp.
He's sharp. He's
Right.
his protege. He's So he brought him into this conference room, I guess, and offered him a lot of money,
Okay.
and which is fine. And what he did wrong was he accepted it on the spot.
Oh, wow.
And you never accept anything right away. You always say, "I'll think about it."
Instant gratification
No matter
took over.
no matter how good the offer is, you always say, "I'll think about it."
Okay.
Okay.
Well, listen, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with Donald Martin, and he's going to be talking about his book. And we're back. My name is Tyrone Lowe. The show is called The Legends, and I have Donald Martin in the house. What's up, Don?
Thank you, man. Everything is cool. Glad to be here.
You know, the corporate world can be so cunning, baffling, and insidious at times. Do you agree?
No question about that.
Okay.
And the one thing about it that which I was against in my company, I never backed down. And number one, if there was any kind of racism showed me that you showed me, then I wouldn't allow you in my showroom.
Right.
Okay, and I'll give you one example. When back in those days in the '90s, the high top fade was the style of the black man.
Yes.
And Kendall had a high top fade, and one time there was a client in the showroom. I knew him, an old guy, and I walked into the showroom and said, "Hello, how you doing?" We're talking, and he says, "Don, it's a very sharp kid you have." I said, "I know." He says, "But his hair is a little high." That's what he tells me.
Okay.
And that upset me. I said, "Henry, let me explain something to you right now. He works for me.
Right.
And if I accept him the way he looks, then you accept him that way as well."
Right.
Okay?
And what was his response?
He was like, "Well, Don, he said something that's really stupid. He said, well, I came from the streets too." That's what he said to me. So I said, "What are you trying to imply? That I came from the streets? Why, does all black people come from the streets?" I said, "You've now insulted my mother."
Wow.
Okay? Because my mother had me, and she certainly didn't have me in the street. That's what I said to him. And I said, so he starts getting, I said, "Look, Henry, I'm done, okay?" Kendall continued with the presentation. I left, and I went back into my office. 10 minutes later, Kendall walks into me and says, "Don, he's in there crying." Like that.
Oh, wow.
He's in there crying. I know, I can't believe this and that. So I said, "Yeah." Well, here's what I said. I said, "Well, I'm not going back in there." I said, the next time he won't say something so stupid. And I was firm on that. I never compromised.
Right.
Because I thought that as a businessman who happened to be black,
Yeah.
you have to respect my space. You have to respect what I present.
Yeah.
And I never back down from that.
Well, that shows the form of his characteristic to assassinate somebody's character as form as their appearance. That has nothing to do with business.
No, it does not. If it's accepted by me, I'm paying him. And if he's in my showroom working with you, then that's all you need to know. And I was a pretty tough guy. I was raised in the industry by tough old Jewish guys.
Right.
So I had that in me. I was the kind of guy, I was a good businessman. I was fair.
Right.
But I was very strong. I didn't back down on things, and in any kind of negotiations or what have you, I was always very strong and kind of held my guns.
Right.
And there was some jealousies in that regard. And but word got around the industry.
That comes with
but
the
words got
format.
around in the industry.
Okay.
Don is a great guy, but you know what? Don't come at him racial. And people respected me for that.
Right.
And here's what I find when you talk about corporate America.
Right.
We're 13% of the population of the United States. Therefore, there are many times when we're the only ones there.
Okay.
There are many times that we are. What we do sometimes, though, unfortunately, is we cow sometimes to sometimes the black jokes that sometimes management may say.
Right.
And I'll give you another example. My boss, before I went into business, he had hired me as a top salesman, and we were in the showroom, and he started telling black jokes in the showroom for the first 2 weeks that I was there.
Oh, okay.
And I felt like I was being clowned. I was like 25, 26 years old.
Were you really intimidated at that point?
Not intimidated. I felt clowned.
Okay.
So what I did was, on Monday morning, after 2 weeks of this nonsense, I went into his office and I shut the door. He said, "Do you have to shut the door?" I said, "Yes." I sat down. I said, "Look, Barry, let me explain something to you. I said, you hired me." I said, "I am good. I am real good. But do not ever say any black jokes in the showroom." Okay? I said, if you want to say it among your friends, it's up to you, but not with me in the showroom.
Okay.
And he said, well, he got nervous. And he said, what do you mean? I said, Barry, I don't operate like that.
Wow.
I said, also this is good for your business. I'm representing you, and I'm the seller, and anybody in that showroom has to respect me. And by you clowning me and me laughing like an idiot, if that's what you want me to do, I never did laugh. I said, that's something that's going to hurt you as well.
Okay.
And I set the record straight.
The book itself, what's the message behind it, and what are you actually trying to symbolize as far as what are you projecting to your readers?
I think that the book, Black Man White Industry, shows of a young black guy who didn't go to college, all right, and thus worked hard from his bootstraps, and just continued to work hard because of my ambition, all right, to be successful, even though I wasn't really the stereotypical guy, went to college, got his master's degree and all that. And I have nothing against all of that. I have 3 kids. I put them all through college.
Right.
That's okay. But I'm saying for me, that was not my way. So my message sometimes is to people that maybe have not had the opportunity to go to college, it's not over for you. Although back then it was a bit easier.
Right.
But still, use your ambition and your drive to always make you successful. And I think that that's one of the things about the book. Also, I talk about sales and marketing.
Right.
Okay, because I was really a power seller. Okay? Now, they teach all this in all these fancy schools. I don't know what that means because I didn't go to any of them.
Right.
Okay?
So did you develop your own marketing strategy
That's correct.
as far as what you're trying to project to the people?
This is what I'm getting at.
Or you simplified it in a sense?
I'm saying that I was trained by some of the old school marketers along with who I was. And I combined that, I guess, and created my own way to sell and to market. Now, when you're a person of color, all right, most of the time, like I said earlier, you're alone in a room, right? And for me, I've always believed through my experiences and so on, when I get into a room, and normally I am, and I'm the only black person, and I'm making a presentation to a sea of whites or what have you, or I can, because I've been in that position so many times before,
Right.
I can look at them and see exactly kind of what they're thinking or saying based on body language.
And vibes, of course.
Exactly. And my message to people of color is that please understand, in that situation, who's in command? You were in command.
Most definitely.
And you know why? Because you're used to seeing them. They're not used to seeing you.
Right.
Okay? Most of them have always been around their own white counterparts. So they envision a black man now, they get a little nervous.
Yeah.
So it's up to me now to put them where I need to put them, to give them a level of comfortability. And I write in my book, after so many things, so many presentations, whatever I've done, people will walk out and say, you know what? It's not so bad doing business with a black man. So that's one of the things I also teach in Black Man White Industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your statue.
Statue? You mean you mean in the museum?
Right, in the museum.
Not a statue.
Oh, my bad.
plaque.
My bad. My bad.
I wish it was a statue. No.
Okay.
A plaque.
Right, a plaque.
About 13, 14 years ago,
Right.
a lot of the factories in the South have closed
Right.
because of the maturation of our society, economical and fashion and so on.
Right.
And my book speaks of all of that too. But anyway, they created a museum. And when they did, they contacted me and says, Don Martin, you need to be in this museum. And because of what you meant to this whole region and how we did business and friendships and bonds that created over so many years. So I had to take a picture, and they kept calling me to do it, and I kind of put it off. And then the head guy, Robin, he says, Don, come on, D. We got the museum open. We want you, man. Come on, man. So I said, all right. So I went and I wrote my bio, and I sent the picture down, and what they did was they sent the bio, they sent it back to me, and they added something to the bio at the end for my approval. And what they added was that it actually said that people buy from people they like. and a couple other words, can't remember, that he added to the bio.
Right.
And I approved it.
Okay.
So it's now erected in the museum there, which I think is quite flattering.
How does it feel to actually give people a change of mind as far as their thoughts and their characteristics and their focus and the way that they actually look at things? Because especially a person of color, you know, to change their whole demeanor and looking at you as a person instead of looking at you just as a black man, how did that make you feel as of now?
Well, I'll be honest with you, confidence is everything.
Okay.
And when confidence is within, you don't have to open your mouth
Right, right.
because it's there. So confidence is exuded out of you in the air around you. So I didn't have to speak even.
Okay.
My character, my mannerism, everything about me had to be respected. And then I speak. So I always, what I chronicle in Black Man White Industry is that we, as people of color, grow your confidence. It takes time, but grow your confidence is what you are.
Right.
And when you project that, the world can see it.
That's fine. People that actually want to get into the fashion industry and things of that nature, what would you actually say to them?
The industry has had so much upheavals. I mean, I went into the business in 1976 as a kid.
Is there a change now as far as the fundamentals of it?
Everything's changed.
Okay. Let's talk about the change.
Let's say, for instance, back then, a lot of stuff was manufactured in the United States. Okay? A lot of stuff was manufactured in the States, which made it a lot easier. And as, of course, all the other nations like China, India, South America started growing, even Japan. When I first was in business, my first company I formed in 1986, we did a lot of business out of Japan. I used to go to Japan all the time. And at that time, they were just getting out of needle trades and going into technology, cars, and so on. Needle trades is usually the easiest thing for nations to get into, all right, in order to build their revenues and brand, and then branch off into other technical things of high tech, because now they have the finance and so on to do that.
Right.
So today, it's a different world. What's happening in the industry today, number one, I was in menswear tailored clothing. I have on a jacket today, you know, a little funked out, you know what I'm saying? But normally I would have wore a suit and tie, okay? But that's faded, as you know.
Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure having you on my show.
Thank you.
I wish we had a little bit more time, but unfortunately we don't. But come back again. You have an extended invitation to the show. And this has been another T-Lo video production. And
I'd like to say one more thing, if you don't mind. This is what I'm saying. As of today, when I look at my experiences and what I want to project for my history, all right, is for people of color to just constantly keep striving.
Okay.
And I strongly believe that, and you will, without question, get anywhere that you want to go.
Okay, great. And this has been another T-Lo video production, and you guys stay tuned for another episode. My guest, Donald Martin, is in the house, and check him out.
It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.